Christhina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I thought maybe we kick off our discussion by acknowledging that COVID has, in fact, accelerated many trends that we saw pre-COVID, and also acknowledging that perhaps open plan offices were done really badly in the past. Not a lot of people were always paying the right amount of attention to creating the appropriate spaces within the open plan office. And so often you'd walk in and hear all the frustration about, I can't focus, people around me are talking, all the noise about how stressful open plan spaces are is because they were not designed with the end user being consulted to get to a very customized result. And I may just say that doesn't mean that you have to bend to personalities of people, but rather understand the culture of an organization and the tone that's being set, and creating spaces that are correct for certain roles and activities. So it's not about the individual necessarily, but it is about the organization. And Christhina, I know you've got some interesting thoughts about, flexible working and how COVID has shone the light on that and how that impacts the open plan office.
Yeah, I'm finding, of course, the discussion very interesting because very much like it was before COVID, it's everything that's related to open plan office seems to be very black and white, and it becomes a very polarized discussion. And I think when, in a post-COVID sort of context, we've seen the same behavior or the same type of discussion when it comes to, is the office going to cease to exist? Is going to disappear, and we're all just going to be working from home? So I think, yes, a lot of the research and a lot of the discussion has been focused perhaps too much on the negatives of both, not only the way we work, but where we work from. And I think now with COVID and even before then, there is this huge opportunity to try to understand and get to the bottom of the so what. So how do we improve? How can we actually support people better through, a combination of the way they work and where they work from? What is interesting, what we find from the research is that within the context of open plan offices and especially activity-based working environments, the interior design or the interior design configuration of spaces is even more important than, for example, acoustic-related concerns. So when it comes to occupant satisfaction, health, and productivity, interior design is very important. Especially when it comes to biophilic design, active design, and ergonomics. And I found that quite fascinating because a lot of the discussion has been on the acoustics, for example, related issues.
It probably shines the light on how sensitive we are as human beings to acoustic comfort.
Precisely.
And, that then reinforces this whole idea of being able to create the appropriate zones and the appropriate spaces within an open plan office to enable the separation of all the competing functions, which causes so many people frustrations during the, early 1990s to early 2000s open plan approach, where it was just blanketed. There are rows of workstations, they're all the same size. Off you go, fit in your cubicle, and that's the way you're going to be working in future. And I guess from my perspective, having seen how COVID has brought to the forefront the whole discussion on, actually, I've really enjoyed working from home 1 or 2 days, but really want to be in the office with my colleagues, brings to the forefront that culture, the stickiness, the sense of belonging, and innovation happening face to face. Now, we all acknowledge that can only happen once it's safe to do so, but I'm expecting that offices, yes, they'll be open plan. However, I think they'll be far more focused on being social spaces, connecting spaces, supporting all of those things.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more, because I think we're having this really interesting discussion and, trying to understand, do we actually need offices? And then if we do, which I do believe that we very much do, why should we have them? Therefore, I do believe that offices are there to provide this, background for social interactions, opportunities to learn, collaborate, connect with people in a very organic way. That would be only possible if we're actually together somewhere. So I think technology, it of course brings us, together in different ways, but there are lots to deal with of these impromptu sort of meetings. You just meet people and you see people, and then all these magic opportunities bring, from that. From the design perspective, and I think the experience of a spaces perspective, open plan offices will somehow resurrect, I suppose, in a different way, as we've seen it before. And perhaps it gives again an opportunity to address issues. Maybe we should be working from home 2 or 3 days a week to be actually doing most of the focus work that we require to as knowledge workers. But then on top of that, there is, the need to be together in some other days to actually just have the social or have the opportunity to socialize with people. So I do, and I'm seeing that through, early research results as well. 8 in every 10 Australian workers that we survey, they do indicate that they want to have access to more increased flexible working arrangements in a post-COVID arrangement. And of course, they do enjoy having more time with family and not having to commute. But at the same time, they also reported issues around the isolation and the need to collaborate with people, and also struggling with, exercise and just stopping work because you no longer have that physical, right, kind of context to separate you from work, which needs to be addressed. So I think if we're going to answer the question of the session, if the open plan office is dead or not, I don't think it is. I don't think it will be anytime soon. I think we need offices. But they just going to be different from perhaps what we've seen up to this point. And there is a lot of opportunity in trying to consolidate this new culture, which of course will rely on trust, very much so. And then the physical space will just follow what the organization needs to try to project in terms of the cultural aspects of that particular workplace.
And Christhina, I can see someone has pointed out that the office is all about getting a high density of people in as little space as possible. And even though I do agree in the past that may have been the approach of some organizations, COVID has shone the light, particularly in view of the CFOs, to be far more sensitive to how the office is designed and the amount of space that's dedicated to each person. So going forward, I do see an open plan office that doesn't have the density sub 10 square meters per person, but rather looking forward to an open plan office that has more breathing room and therefore become automatically more enjoyable to be in. And as you've pointed out before, now is the time that people in the HR and operations fields really shine, because people are now, enlightened to see that there is a different way to tackle the problem. They don't have to create a desk per full-time employee for organizations, but rather consider the purpose of why people are coming together and understanding, in essence, how many people may be physically in your bricks and mortar office on one given day. And perhaps, from our research, certainly, roughly about 51% of office space was always dedicated to individual workspace. We predict that will drop down to about 34%, roughly, based on occupancy on any given day. I don't think you'd ever recreate individual offices per full-time employee, but rather have desks appropriate to tasks being conducted, and then create collaboration areas, meeting rooms, quiet rooms, whatever is appropriate for a particular organization at any point in time. That's what you're going to create. You're not just going to try and squeeze people into space, but you're rather going to celebrate the reason they've come together and enhance it so that it is a great experience. But I think all of us have discovered that really, transactional task work can be done reasonably effectively from home. And I think something like 80% of people have said, yes, I'd love to work from home a day a week. And then it drops to, 30% of people saying, oh, I'd love to work from home 2 days or more. So I think we're in for a mix. Our home offices are extensions of our open office, but fully agree the open office is here to stay. It just needs to be reinvented.